Welcome back to episode 4 of Beyond the Buzzer. As you can see, we got some unfamiliar faces, and we also have Austin back. So we have Jordan and Chris, two of our friends. You guys want to introduce yourself? Go ahead.
I'm Jordan Levine, big Rangers, Yankees, Knicks, and Jets fan. I love to talk about sports and play sports.
I'm Chris. I don't really root for a team, but I just love watching sports.
We call Chris Stat Man because he's heavy on the stats. He's always going on Basketball Reference and debunking theories. All right, so um, we've had some pretty big news yesterday in the NFL. J.J. Watt is now a member of the Cardinals. What do you guys think about that?
I think that it makes the Cardinals a little bit more of a contender. I think that adding him to the defense on the other side of Chandler Jones will totally help. I think that they also have Isaiah Simmons, maybe he improves a little bit more than year two. Their defensive backs are getting better, I think, especially with Byron Murphy taking a big step. They have to still re-sign Patrick Peterson, but I think it improves their defense a lot, adding another veteran presence.
This JJ Watt move is a bit concerning for me, to be honest. For me, my always concern with JJ Watt is can he stay healthy? And if he stays healthy, he's definitely a great defensive end. But if he gets hurt, it could be a big bust for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean they are paying him a bunch of money. I think 2 years, 31 million. So being healthy is going to be a really big key. But that front seven could be huge. Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons, Hassan Reddick might re-sign. I know he's a free agent. The secondary still developing too. Buda Baker was great last year. Chris, what are your thoughts on that signing?
I'm just worried about their linebackers because if Isaiah Simmons doesn't take like that big step that most of us think he will, they're going to struggle stopping the run.
Yeah, definitely. So is that all you guys want to talk about the Cardinals? I mean, in my opinion, I don't know if this puts them into a concrete like 100% contender. I think it gets them a step closer to there. I don't think it puts them within the realm of the Chiefs, the Bucks, Packers, those teams. What do you guys think? Are they a contender or are they just going to be another good playoff team that could possibly have a run?
I mean,
I think
I think they win their division. If Kyler takes a step and they stay healthy, they'll win their division, I think. And they could contend, especially if Isaiah Simmons becomes like a monster and starts just playing like how he did in Clemson.
I was going to agree with Chris there. I think that they will most likely win the division if everybody stays healthy. I think that their running back tandem on offense with Drake and Edmonds is pretty good. I think that the receivers with Hopkins, guys like Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella even is okay. I mean, I think that the receivers will hold up. It would be nice if they could draft Kyle Pitts if he falls to them. I don't foresee it happening, getting a tight end to add to that offense because Max Williams doesn't seem to be a tight end one. But yeah, I think that they could contend. I think that maybe string a few games together in the playoffs, their offensive line holds up. Who knows?
I disagree. I think that the defense is weak. Besides that line, I think that the Rams are going to win the division. I think Matt Stafford's a very underrated quarterback, and you're going to see him shine with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and all those weapons on that offense. And with that defense, Aaron Donald and crew is going to shut everyone down. So I think the Rams are going to have that division.
Yeah, that's a good point. That division just is really good. You have the 49ers, who were just in the Super Bowl last year. You have the Rams, who obviously just got Stafford and have an amazing defense. You have the Seahawks, and now you have the Cardinals. With all this drama with Russell Wilson and him arguing with the front office and, some disconnect with Pete Carroll, do you think he tries to force his way out of that division?
I don't think that he's going to try and force his way out of the division, but the reason why I do think he wants out is because that offensive line is atrocious. It's probably worse than the Jets a few years ago. That's the reason why he wants out, and it's shown in the Super Bowl. Good quarterbacks cannot win without an offensive line. And if you have no offensive line, that team will not be successful. And even with that division getting stronger, Seahawks have no chance.
I'd have to agree. I think that I think that Russell Wilson is doing this a little bit and trying to egg on the front office to maybe move up in the first round and draft an offensive tackle. I've heard them being linked to moving up with some other teams, maybe drafting an offensive tackle like Elijah Vera Tucker, Christian Darrisaw. There's a lot of offensive tackles in this year's draft class that could be very good tackles, especially I think they would go tackle. I don't think they would go a guard or a center. Just because their offensive line isn't too amazing. But I think that he's trying to push them to get another offensive lineman instead of really wanting out of the Seahawks.
The thing is that you can't trade up for a first round pick if you don't have one. Keep in mind the Jets have their first round pick from the Jamal Adams trade for the next 2 years. So they don't have a first round pick because they've always been trading away their first round picks. You look at their history, they consistently trade away that first round pick and they've never picked offensive line. So that's where the failure's been.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to look to free agency, I guess. Going along with the draft, though, what are your guys' quarterback rankings? Obviously, we have Trevor Lawrence one. I think that's pretty unanimous, right? But we have a bunch of other guys in the mix, like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. What are your guys' rankings on there? Because I've been seeing Lance fall a bit. His draft stock is going down, and I've seen Jones trending up. So what do you guys think about that? Anyone?
I'm the complete opposite. I love Trey Lance. I think he's going to be really good, and I personally would take him over Fields if I was choosing between them, but I feel like that's pretty unpopular. And Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones is a bit better than Tua coming out last year because Tua's kind of proven what some people believe, that his arm talent isn't as good as he looked, because he had 4 NFL receivers. And I think Mac Jones might have a similar problem because I don't think he's as good as he showed in college, but I still think he should be a mid-first round pick.
I think that competition isn't everything. I think that Zach Wilson didn't play the best of the best competition at BYU. He ended up losing to Coastal Carolina. But in the same breath, I think that on the same line as that, I think that Ohio State and Justin Fields beat Clemson. I do believe that Trey Lance is a better quarterback than Justin Fields, just because I think Lance is a much more aggressive runner. He's a much better runner of the football. I think that he's a better passer as well in some sense. But Mac Jones actually may be QB2 in this draft in front of Zach Wilson, unpopular opinion, but Mac Jones is player comparison, according to Tua, is a better running Tom Brady. Mac Jones proved how he could utilize his options this year in college. He had the receiver with the most amount of touchdowns in Devonta Smith. He had Jalen Waddle, who seems to be a guaranteed top 15 pick. He's going to be an amazing receiver in the NFL. Jaleel Billingsley is their tight end. He made them look great, and he had the best running back in the nation, in my opinion, in Najee Harris. You see what he did with that Alabama offense this year. I think he's going to translate over to the NFL. As a rookie, my player comparison for him would probably be around an Alex Smith, much more of a game manager type of quarterback. But yeah, in the NFL, that has been seeming to work out pretty well. I think that a guy like Zach Wilson, who was the new innovative quarterback per se, is not the right choice for a number 2 quarterback. And I think that Mac Jones is much more of a game manager, a lot more polished because he is older. And I think that he's going to translate over to the NFL very well.
Yeah, I think that Justin Fields takes too long in the pocket. And when you're dealing with teams like the Jets where you're in contention to get picked, you really only have 2 to 3 seconds to throw. You watch a lot of his Ohio State stuff, he's taking 8 seconds to throw sitting in the pocket. And that's where I like Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson moves out of the pocket and makes plays. That's why I have Zach Wilson as my number 2 quarterback in this class. And I personally hope the Jets trade Sam Darnold and pick Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, that Jets decision is going to be always changing, and you're always going to be hearing about, are the Jets going to trade Darnold, or are they going to keep Darnold and draft a receiver? So, I mean, Chris, you're a Jets fan too, right?
Yeah.
Kind of not really. What do you think they're going to do?
I want them to do well, yeah.
Yeah, Darnold over Fields too.
What do you think they're going to do with that second pick? Do you think they're going to take Zach Wilson, or do you think they're going to trade Sam Darnold?
I think, well, the number 1 priority, if they can get Watson with it, then that's what they're going to do. But if they can't, I would want them to trade Darnold and take Wilson, because like Wilson, even though they lost to Coastal Carolina, he still played well. He still had, I think he was 20 of 30 or 19 of 30 with 240 yards and a touchdown. And he was very consistent throughout the year. I don't think he had a game under 200 yards. I'm pretty sure I saw that. And I just think that with the line, with how they have Becton is good, but their line is just okay. They'll be able to create without having a spectacular O-line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And you were talking about Watson. We've heard another team in the news that's going to be aggressively pursuing Deshaun Watson, and the Panthers. They also have the eighth pick this year. Do you guys think if they don't cash in on Deshaun Watson, and if the Texans are very reluctant to trade him, even though he said he fully wants out, do you think they're going to go draft a quarterback or maybe stick with Teddy Bridgewater? Or is Teddy Bridgewater a free agent?
No, he's still with them, but he's Teddy Bridgewater still has a few more years on his contract. I think that if they keep 8 and they do not trade the 3 first-round picks and Christian McCaffrey, which I heard was the asking price, because I heard they were willing to give that up to get Deshaun Watson, because it turns them from like a 5-win team to an automatic playoff contender, from what their GM was saying. And Matt Rule is very aggressive. You saw what he did at Baylor. I think that they should keep. I think they should try to trade Bridgewater if they can. Keep 8, keep McCaffrey. Don't go after Deshaun Watson. And at pick 8, you draft a guy like Trey Lance, I think would be the perfect quarterback there. I think that him and Deshaun Watson are pretty similar in the sense that they're both big playmakers. I think that they're very similar in their running ability, ability to scramble the pocket and move out, make big time throws, and make the big time plays at the end of the game. That's going to change results at the end of the day. I think they will keep Bridgewater for the year and try to groom in whoever their quarterback will be, but I think they will take a quarterback at picking.
Yeah, that deal for McCaffrey is way too much. You're 3 firsts, yeah, that's definitely going to be the asking price. Adding in the best running back in the league, in my opinion, absolutely not. And I don't even think it puts them into immediate playoff contention because you still have the Buccaneers and the Saints in that division. And I mean, the Saints is a bit of a question mark because we don't know what Drew Brees is doing, but I think you cannot give up Christian McCaffrey. You cannot. But if we don't see Deshaun on the Panthers this year, where do you guys see him playing, or where would you like to see him playing next year? Let me know your guys' thoughts.
Personally, I think it'd be crazy to see Deshaun on Carolina with Christian McCaffrey. I want to see that, to be honest. However, Houston did an hour ago. They constructed David Johnson's contract a bit differently, saving a bit more money, and I don't think that they're actually going to give up Christian McCaffrey. So, if they do go all in on Deshaun Watson, I think that'd be a nice combination there.
Chris, where do you want to see Deshaun next year?
I want to see him playing Carolina, even if they have to give up McCaffrey, because him throwing to DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson would be something to watch. And their defense is still good enough to keep them in playoff contention because Burns is broken out. Their safeties are really good. And the other place I'd like to see him is San Francisco, because Shanahan is one of the best minds in football offensively. And giving him George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, who are 2 of the best after catch, I guess, playmakers in the league, would be lights out.
I completely agree. I think San Francisco would be the perfect situation for Deshaun. They already have that defense that's solidified as one of the best in the league. Even though Salah is out, they still have some really good playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. You add Deshaun Watson on the offensive side with, as you said, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, still have Mostert back there. That's really scary. And that NFC West division is going to be stacked.
I would like to see him in New Orleans. I think that if Drew Brees does retire and they were to, I don't know if they would keep Taysom Hill in that sense. I think that Jameis Winston will walk in free agency. I think that there's another opportunity out there somewhere for him. But if he was to get traded for, I don't know how many first New Orleans would have to give up and whatever else, because they have assets that they can move on from there, and they have a very bad cap situation. They would have to give up a lot of cap. I don't know how that would work in a trade, but if there is a way that they can get Deshaun Watson while keeping Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, that offense would be just fantabulous to watch.
That's the thing. Who are you going to trade to get Deshaun Watson? You know, you're going to have to probably give up a really talented guy, and maybe that is Michael Thomas, maybe that is Alvin Kamara, or maybe Drew Brees stays, and you know, they just roll with it with the same team as last year. Speaking of the 49ers and Deshaun Watson possibly going there, do you think they're going to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo? Anyone?
I think in most scenarios, yes. If they don't get Watson, the only way I see him not playing or not starting for them would be if they move up and take Fields, but I don't see why they do that. I think something interesting, similar to what the Panthers might do, is they could draft Lance, have him sit a year behind Garoppolo, and see how he plays in camp. And then if they think he's ready and Garoppolo's struggling, put him in.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Austin.
All right. I'd have to agree with Chris. I really don't see a scenario where Jimmy G will not be the quarterback for the 49ers next year. They're a very run-heavy offense. They like to use a bunch of running backs. Garoppolo isn't put in a position to throw the ball a lot. With guys like Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk as guys that he just uses on jet sweeps. He also had Mostert. He had Tevin Coleman, and he had Jerick McKinnon. I really don't see a way that they get another quarterback who's going to throw the ball.
I agree. But there are 5 quarterbacks in this class who you can say will take his spot if they do get drafted, because I think that they are better quarterbacks than him. And the spot for Jimmy G, if not the 49ers, is definitely New England. Back with Belichick, he was great when he played there. So that reunion is definitely likely if it's not the 49ers.
Yeah, the Patriots still need their quarterback, and it's honestly a question mark. No one knows what's going to happen there. Maybe they get someone in the draft. Maybe, as you said, they get Garoppolo. But yeah, no one really knows what's happening in New England right now with that quarterback situation, since Cam Newton is probably on the way out. So do you guys have anything else to add about NFL, or we want to transition on? All good? All right. So we could move into the NBA. Some kind of significant news recently, as the All-Star break's coming up. Lloyd Pierce, the coach of the Hawks, was fired after they are off to a 14-20 start, which was very disappointing. A lot of people thought the Hawks were going to be contending for a playoff spot, as they had a bunch of new free agent signings, Gallinari, Rajon Rondo, Chris Dunn, and they looked like a pretty strong team. They had Clint Capella finally playing, but there were rumors that guys like Trae Young and guys in the Hawks did not want Lloyd Pierce as their coach anymore. Where do you guys think the Hawks go, and what the direction for this team is in the future?
I think that this means that John Collins is out at the trade deadline. I can see Trae Young trying to lead the team and trying to take the team on his own. I think he has that kind of ego, and I think he's that kind of person. He wants to do it all on his own. So I do think John Collins will be dealt in the trade deadline. And the playoffs, I think that they might miss it. They might get that 10th spot. I think it's between Chicago and Atlanta for the 10th spot in the playoffs.
I'd have to agree with Jordan there. I think that John Collins most likely will be on his way out. To where, I really don't know. Maybe the Celtics can make a move for him. I think that's a really good landing spot for them, as they're really big man hungry. Yeah, I think it was time to move on from Lloyd Pierce. I think they need a young coach that's going to mesh well with Trae Young. I think that they could use a guy like Chauncey Billups or another former point guard who would mesh with him extremely well as a head coach, because I think that those two guys, especially Billups and Young, would have a really good relationship together.
Yeah, I think the firing of Pierce was a good move, but I don't think that Pierce was the only problem, because I personally felt that they didn't use John Collins right, but they also have had a lot of injuries. They haven't had Hunter and Reddish, who are both their sophomore players, who both have a lot of potential, especially defensively, and their defense has struggled a lot this year. And I still think they can make the play-in, and if they get hot, they can definitely win the play-in and make a good series with a top seed. But they're going to have to find a good coach that's going to use Trae, John, and Capella right in order to make that run.
Yeah, now I feel like it's kind of just Trae Young. Like, they're holding on by a thread, and they're just depending on Trae Young to drop you 30 and 8 a night. And if that doesn't happen, they're going to lose every game. And with Jordan, how he said, you think John Collins is going to be gone by the deadline. Who's going to be there to really help him on the offensive side of the ball? I mean, DeAndre Hunter, he's out, but he was playing great. He's averaging 17 and having a breakout season, but Cam Reddish is iffy. If John Collins is out, you have Gallinari stepping in, who's not been playing like Gallinari in OKC last year. And you have Clint Capella, who is a good offensive guy, but I just don't think it's enough playmakers on the wings to help Trae Young. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch what the Hawks do along the deadline. But we have another struggling team this year that was projected to be one of the top seeds in the East, the Celtics. And there's been a lot of questions. Is it their injuries that they're not good? Is it the lack of a good center because they failed to bring in a center in free agency? They only got Tristan Thompson. Or do you think it's, Kemba coming off the injury, not playing as well? Or could it be Brad Stevens? What do you guys think about the Celtics this year?
100% Brad Stevens' fault. You cannot have Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, and Jaylen Brown, and then be 500. It's all his fault. And you look at teams like the New York Knicks, for example, with the new coach, a culture change, and you can see the Knicks don't have talent. The Knicks don't have one player who's paid the max, and they are above 500. And they did have COVID problems. Their center is good. Theis is a good center, and Kemba is just fine. So you have a player like Jason Tatum. There is no way where you can blame it on the players. It has to be the coach. They need a new voice. And another coach that also needs to be out is Luke Walton. He's done.
I agree. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd have to disagree. I don't believe that it's Brad Stevens' fault. Brad Stevens had an amazing team about 2 years ago with the Celtics. He was an amazing coach at Butler. He was a great college coach as well. I think that Kemba has been the issue. His facilitating is not great at all. They pay him way too much money. I think that they should trade Marcus Smart, Daniel Theis, maybe Aaron Nesmith, or a first or a second, maybe one of the two, to try to get a guy like Andre Drummond. I really think they do need an interior presence. They could also use a guy like John Collins. I think that having a big down there really would help them space the floor a lot better because they have two really, really good young players in Jaylen Brown and in Jason Tatum. Those are two really young stars that really could spread the floor really nicely. I think that's the issue. I think that they need another guy on that team, a big who they could just feed the ball to and dish out.
I think that
Go ahead, Chris.
Boston is there's just problems everywhere. Tatum and Brown they play so similar. So it's hard to they're pretty similar. It's hard for them to coexist. And I think that it's hard to say to test one of their values on the trade market, but you almost might want to see what you could get. And Kemba hasn't been himself for part of this year until recently. And Stevens is a good coach, but he isn't getting the team to rally around each other, and they're not playing together. Tatum at the end of games just takes contested mid-range shots all the time. Jaylen Brown will look for a three or to drive, and they're just not playing like a team at the end of the game, which is why they struggle. When they gave up 7 points in 10 seconds to the Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the big problem is Marcus Smart just not being there. His defense is something that they've just missed, and they don't have anyone to guard a high-level point guard because Kemba can.
Yeah, they're definitely missing that Marcus Smart intensity on the defensive side. But like you said before, I agree with how you think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't really mesh. A lot of times they're just taking turns on the offensive side of the ball, and they can't really play, with each other. They're not really moving off the ball, setting screens. And I feel like they're kind of just two pieces that will never fit together as good as they are and as good players they are. I just don't think that duo is going to work. And I agree with Jordan. Brad Stevens, he is a good coach. This team should definitely be above 500. But it has been a disappointing season for the Celtics. They have dealt with some injuries. Tatum had COVID in the beginning of the year, which was rough, but they got to get it back together after the All-Star break. And Jordan, you were talking about the Knicks, how they are over 500. Tom Thibodeau's having a huge impact on the Knicks this year. Julius Randle's an all-star. They got some bright young rookies. Great play from RJ Barrett. I'm smiling right now. Do you guys think the Knicks are for real? Do you think they can end the season as a 4 or 5 seed? Or do you think, they're going to plummet and be the real Knicks we've seen the past 5 years?
No, I don't think the Knicks are a 4 to 6 seed. I definitely see Boston bouncing back. And I also see Toronto also claiming one of those spots, in Miami Heat also going into those 4 to 6 spots. But I do expect the Knicks to take that 7 to 10 spot. And I think that they're going to be a team that's going to cause some trouble in the playing round.
Yeah, definitely. You're not going to want to play the Knicks in the first round. They have second best defensive rating in the league, least points allowed per game, and that's all just the defensive mastermind of Thibodeau, and how he's a great coach, how he gets his guys to rally, how he gets them to play high intensity defense together. Austin and Chris, what do you guys think about the Knicks this year?
I think that they're for real. I think that they will make it to the playoffs. I think that they could even stay at the 5 seed if they keep winning games. I think that they're going to make a deadline move though. I think that there's going to be a move within the next 24 hours or the next whatever it will be. I heard on Bleacher Report, I saw that there will be a big time player being moved at the deadline. We don't know who it will be yet. It could be of the likes of John Collins, Lowry, Beal, even. I don't really think Beal would be moved though. But I think that the Knicks are for real. I could see a player like, I don't even know, Damian Lillard. I think he wants to be moved. He's been saying he wants to go to the Knicks for some time, honestly. I don't know if it really will happen, but the Knicks are for real. They're going to make a move at the deadline and they're going to want to contend. And I could see them in the playoffs and going maybe second round, third round.
Yeah, speaking of trade deadline rumors, I think I saw something that said the Knicks offered Nerlens Noel and Kevin Knox for Andre Drummond, and the Cavs declined it. There might have been some draft picks in there, but I guess you can kind of assess the value that the Cavs have placed on Drummond. As a Knicks fan, I honestly am not begging for Drummond just because he is on an expiring contract. And if the Knicks are going to re-sign him, he's going to want, a hefty amount of money. He's going to probably want like 20 plus million a year. No, I'm probably a little more, probably 25 plus million a year. I don't really know if Andre Drummond should be getting paid more than Julius Randle because he obviously is not going to have that huge of an impact, although he's one of the best rebounders in the league. I just don't think he's that worth it to bring to the Knicks. But some other guys have been circulating in trade rumors. We have guys like Porzingis, possibly Bradley Beal since the beginning of the season. Austin said Kyle Lowry. What do you guys think is going to happen to some of these guys around the trade deadline?
I think Kyle Lowry stays. I don't think Toronto moves on from him, especially they're pretty close to the 4 seed now. The top 3 in the East seem to be set, but everything after that is still up in the air. So I think that they're definitely going to keep him and contend. Bradley Beal, especially with the way the Wizards are hot right now, they're 7-3 in their last 10. They're not trading him. I've heard Zach Levine's name being thrown around a bit, but I don't see them moving on from him because he's still 26 and he can develop with Kobe White, Markkanen, Carter. But I think Oladipo definitely can is someone I'd like to see be moved. I don't understand why they traded LeVert for Oladipo, but maybe they're looking for some other assets like draft picks is what they want. So I think he should get moved. And I think a team that he said he's interested in signing in is the Heat. And they could look to maybe add him because Tyler Hero and Dragic aren't very good defenders in the backcourt, and neither is Nunn. So adding a good defensive guard with Jimmy would make their perimeter defense a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think honestly it was a pretty bad decision for the Rockets to give up LeVert. Even though he is injured, he's under contract for the next couple of years. And I think he's probably a better fit with the timeline of the Rockets, the young Rockets core you kind of have, or they kind of have a mix of like some old and young players, but he fits with like the timeline of the development of Christian Wood, kind of the same age. But yeah, the Rockets are in the trenches right now. They're like the second worst team in the West, I think. So yeah, they're gonna need a little bit of a rebuild. Any other guys you think are on the move at the trade deadline, guys?
I think Porzingis is going to be on the move, but I don't think that he's going to have a high price. You see him pulling up from the logo, just some poor shot decisions, and I think that the Knicks. You're looking back on that trade, you can say the Knicks definitely possibly won that trade. You're going to get a good pick this year from him, a good pick in 2 years. He gets hurt every game. He doesn't play too much, and when he does play, he's honestly, you might as well just give the ball to Luke every time because Porzingis is very unreliable. So definitely think that his value will be low, but I think he will be moved.
I'd be interested to see where he goes. I've heard 2 rumors, and both of them sound pretty unrealistic for the Mavs to get the trade to be accepted. The rumors are either he gets traded for John Collins or he gets traded to the Warriors for Wiggins and Oubre, and both those just seem like something the other team just wouldn't accept.
I'd have to agree with that, Chris. Porzingis, I really don't think will be moved. I think that Mark Cuban made a comment about it recently, saying that I never heard anything about rumors about Porzingis. I don't think he's going to be moved because of that. I think Mark Cuban wants to keep Porzingis and Luka together. I think that he also wants to add a third star. Who that third star may be, I don't know. I heard Victor Oladipo's name being linked to them earlier in the over the offseason. So maybe Oladipo gets traded there. I don't really see that happening, though. I really think that there's always a lot of speculation right before the deadline, and nothing usually really happens that's really tremendous. So I really don't think many of these guys will be on the move.
Chris said that there could be a Kristaps and John Collins trade happening. I definitely see that as a possibility, just because there are both guys on the trade market now that have been openly on the trade market for a little bit of time. So I think that trade could be possible. But yeah, as you said, there's usually a lot of hype about the trade deadline, and usually guys just end up staying with their teams, or it's just less important minor trades like Marcus Morris to the Clippers or something, and just not as important and impactful trades. Like we probably won't see a guy like Bradley Beal getting traded. Chris said he doesn't think Kyle Lowry is going to get traded. I honestly agree with the success the Raptors have had recently, but you never know. It's always up in the air. So yeah, any other NBA talk, guys, or no? All good. So do you guys want to wrap it up or no? Or are we good? Talk a little bit about, I don't know, college football. Austin, you said.
Yeah, we could talk about that if you want.
Yeah. What's up?
All right. So the SEC schools are talking about having max capacity at football games this year. Do you guys think that gives them a competitive edge over Big Ten and Pac-12 schools come college game day? And will they be able to have an advantage towards bowl games because they will have such a crowd noise and be already adjusted to it?
No. I think that when you're doing the season, SEC schools play the SEC schools. So you're going to have that advantage on both sides. And when it comes to the bowl games, I think that COVID is going to simmer down, and you're going to see most schools having maybe not max capacity, but majority of their stadium filled. So I don't think it's going to be a big advantage. I saw Big Ten is having 25% at Beaver Stadium, which is like 26,000 or something people like that. So I think the buildings are going to be loud, but competitive advantage over the other conferences, not so much.
Yeah, and with COVID and everything, we've seen guys across, every sport say how much they miss the fans, and popular to, some belief by some guys in the media and just some fans in general. Fans do actually, impact the game. They get the players, energized. At the free throw line, when fans are banging their sticks, it gets the player rattled. And, not having that in a lot of sports, and not having the crazy chants at soccer games, and obviously, the banging of the sticks at the free throw line, and the roaring fans at NFL games, it definitely, impacts. When a player looks up in the stands and the stands are empty, they don't get as energized. They're not as motivated to play the game. So fans definitely do have an impact in the game. As to say with the SEC, they are going to be playing interconference games since it is the SEC coming to bowl games. I think the same as Jordan. I think there's probably going to be, if not max capacity, some fans in the stands. So I don't think it'll make a huge difference in a sense of competitive advantage, but it definitely will ignite the players and motivate them. Yeah.
NBA news just announced 12 minutes ago. Coaches of the month: Quinn Snyder and Steve Nash. Shout out to Steve Nash for making Kyrie Irving play this month. So Steve Nash, and definitely deserving of that.
Yeah, Quinn Snyder as well. Jazz are #1 team in the West. They just lost last night, I believe, but they're definitely huge leap from last year, from what we saw last year. So I guess that's it. We'll call it an episode. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Chris and Jordan, for hopping on this week. And yeah, like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.